In a ruined land, long abandoned by people due to monsters known as fiends, a young man named Alice Reagan is clashing with several of these abnormal beings. His movements are swift and precise, a testament to his honed combat skills. With a graceful dance of blade and magic, he easily defeats all of the fiends surrounding him. As the last one falls to the ground, vanquished, Alice pauses to catch his breath, his chest rising and falling with the exertion. Taking a moment to enjoy the beautiful sky, painted in hues of orange and pink as the sun dips below the horizon, Alice relishes this fleeting moment of tranquility in a world torn by chaos. But he knows he can't linger. He dusts himself off, leaving behind the remnants of the fallen fiends, and with a determined expression, he continues his journey, the weight of his responsibilities pressing on his shoulders. Later, Alice meets with Beric Cerebian, a trusted confidant and advisor. Alice speaks of his weariness, his desire to retire from the relentless battle against the fiends, and yearning for a simpler life. Beric, however, is not ready to let Alice retire just yet. He skillfully presents an enticing offer, proposing that Alice can have an extended leave with comfortable living arrangements, on the condition that he will respond when the country needs him for protection. Alice, though reluctant, sees the wisdom in this compromise and agrees to continue his duty. Skipping forward in time to the Second Magical Institute's entrance ceremony, the Great Hall is packed to the brim with new students eager to begin their academic journeys. However, there is one conspicuous absence: the empty seat reserved for Alice. On this significant day, Alice has arrived at the institute early, but he has no intention of attending the entrance ceremony. He is determined to focus on preparing his research facility, a place where he can explore his interests and passions. As Alice makes his way toward his research facility, a girl with chestnut-colored hair named Alice calls out to him. Before they can exchange a single word, Alice is abruptly summoned away by a girl with fiery red hair, leaving Alice somewhat bewildered. Later in the day, Alice finds himself in a meeting with the chairwoman, Sisti Nexophia. She offers him a stern warning. To avoid being sent back to the military, he needs to make minimal appearances in class and earn enough credits to fulfill his obligations. Alice, who has chosen this path to escape the relentless fiend battles, requests that his true identity remains a well-guarded secret. Sisti assures him that his secret will be safe and that he can navigate this new chapter in his life with discretion. Inside his room in the new building constructed for experiments, Alice enjoys the solitude and the well-appointed space given to him, a unique privilege among the students of the Second Magical Institute. This room serves as both his living quarters and research laboratory, providing him with an environment tailored to his needs, setting him apart from his peers. After a considerable amount of time passes, Alice decides to make his way to class. As he enters the classroom, he is surprised to find that the two girls he met before, Alice and Tesphia, are also among his fellow students in this class. Alice, in her friendly manner, tries to initiate a conversation with Alice, seeking to bridge the gap between them. Alice, however, responds with a blunt, dismissive tone, causing Tesphia to become increasingly irritated. The situation escalates as Tesphia confronts Alice, questioning his attitude and behavior. Even when class begins, Alice remains defiant, refusing to disclose his Magic Master ranking on his license like the other students. Tesphia's frustration continues to mount, and it becomes clear that a confrontation is inevitable. Growing tired of Tesphia's persistent challenges, Alice decides to leave the classroom, and he doesn't return until the second period's mock battles at the training grounds. Here, Alice faces off against an opponent, armed with nothing but a book that he reads casually as the battle unfolds. In an effort to avoid drawing undue attention to himself, he deliberately loses the battle without sustaining any injuries. Tesphia, once again infuriated by Alice's indifferent attitude, decides to challenge him to a duel after school. Surprisingly, Alice agrees to the duel under one condition: that Alice be the sole witness to their impending clash, setting the stage for a showdown that promises to be anything but ordinary. After his earlier encounter with Tesfia and the agreement to duel, Alice leaves the classroom and heads to Chairwoman Sisti's office. He discusses his request to reserve the entire training grounds for the duel, securing the location for the impending confrontation. Sisti grants his request, and with the arrangements made, Alice can now focus on the challenge ahead. Alice returns to the classroom in the middle of afternoon classes, his absence noted but his purpose undisclosed. As the day's lessons conclude, he meets Alice and Tesfia at the reserved training grounds, where the stage is set for their duel. Standing face to face with Tesfia, Alice seemingly defies conventional expectations, holding nothing but a simple pamphlet in his hand. This choice of weapon baffles and frustrates Tesfia even more, intensifying her determination to prove her point. As the duel unfolds, Tesfia comes at Alice with her katana, her strikes swift and determined. Alice, using the pamphlet as an unconventional defense, blocks her attacks with surprising agility. However, Alice soon grows tired of the repeated strikes and the heated confrontation. Seizing an opportunity created by one of Tesla's own attacks, he smacks her with the pamphlet, causing her to lose her balance and fly backward, landing on the ground. Unwilling to concede defeat, Tesfia summons her icicle sword, a formidable weapon with the potential to turn the tide. She attempts to launch an attack, but Alice swiftly cuts the sword in half with a precise strike, defeating the attack and leaving Tesfia disarmed and disheartened. The duel reaches an unexpected conclusion, leaving Tesfia with a bruised ego and a newfound respect for Alice's unorthodox but effective combat skills. In the aftermath of their duel, with tensions still lingering in the air, Alice takes the initiative to extend an olive branch. He approaches Tesfia and offers a sincere apology for his earlier insulting behavior. Tesfia, recognizing her own overreaction, also offers an apology in return. The two young individuals acknowledge their missteps, and a sense of reconciliation starts to emerge between them. To understand Alice's ability to defeat her so easily, Tesfia can't help but ask. Alice, uncertain of how to respond, turns to Chairwoman Sisti for assistance. Sensing the need for transparency, Sister decides it's time to reveal Alice's true rank to Tesfia and Alice. With a composed demeanor, Sisti discloses Alice's rank, leaving Tesfia and Alice astounded by the revelation. The newfound knowledge adds a layer of understanding to their interactions with Alice. Sisti, taking the initiative once more, forcibly recommends that Alice should assist in training both Tesfia and Alice. Though he may do so begrudgingly, Alice ultimately agrees to take on this responsibility. The next day, Alice decides to brave return to his classes. As he takes his seat, there's a noticeable hush among his fellow students, with their gazes flicking back and forth between the newcomer and the now infamous whispered information. The professor, perhaps somewhat unknowingly, calls upon Alice to answer a question. Unbeknownst to him, Alice starts to unleash a torrent of information, delving into subjects that were, until a moment ago, deeply classified. His unexpected verbosity leaves the entire class bewildered, their eyes wide and jaws dropped. As the class ends and the students shuffle out, Tesfia seizes the opportunity to corner Alice, determination etched across her face. She sternly questions him about the confidential information he inadvertently spilled during class. Alice, caught off guard, attempts to deny the veracity of his words. However, he's quickly met with stern looks of disbelief from both Tesfia and Alice, who has joined in. With their intense interest piqued, Tesfia and Alice formally request that Alice become their mentor and share his knowledge. Alice, now feeling like a proverbial cat caught with the canary, agrees to their proposal, unsure of the events unfolding around him. After they part ways for the day, Alice decides to venture to the cafeteria for lunch. However, his military service has left him ill-equipped to navigate the intricacies of this civilian establishment. It's here that Tesfia makes another appearance, showing him the ropes and even purchasing his meal, as he lacks the means to do so himself. Alus guides Alice and Tesfia to his private room, where he demonstrates how to coat a simple wooden stick with his mana. He breaks the stick in half, giving each of them a piece and instructing them to replicate the mana coating. They spend hours practicing, with Alice providing patient guidance as they make progress. As dusk approaches, Alice sees the two back to the women's dormitory, their bond strengthening. Later, Alice meets with Sisti, learning he must take the upcoming proficiency exam, with Sisti as the assessor to conceal his powers. They discuss changes in military policies, including a proposal for students to battle fiends, a plan that concerns Sisti. She seeks Alice's advice on how to prevent this policy change and protect the students. Meanwhile, an unidentified girl lurks in the shadows, observing Alus with a determination to confront him. It is revealed that as part of their extracurricular lessons, the students will engage in battles against low-class demon beasts. Alice and Tesfia discuss the anxiety this decision brings while sitting in Alice's research room. Alice reassures them not to fret, explaining that the chairwoman will select 5 students for each team during the extracurricular lesson. His knowledge about this process surprises both Alice and Tesfia, and they ponder who their teammates will be. Alice, however, remains relaxed because he believes that no matter who he is paired with, they won't have many responsibilities. When Alice questions how he plans to conceal his true mage rank, Alice sarcastically suggests that being an unconcerned observer might be a suitable choice. He tells Alice and Tesfia to enjoy their share of challenges in the outside world. Still curious, Alice presses him to reveal his plan for handling the upcoming situation without exposing his true identity. Alus candidly expresses his disinterest in concealing his identity, but is determined not to appear cowardly to others. Surprisingly, he discloses that he and Loki will be working behind the scenes for the upcoming extracurricular lesson. Tesfia is later concerned because the team leader in her group is someone she doesn't have a good rapport with. Alus advises her to train with other team members, and she and Alice depart from his room. Loki informs Alice about a meeting scheduled at the chairwoman's office the next morning. The following day, Alice and Loki attend the meeting with the chairwoman's office, where a few first-year students have gathered. The students have been restricted from participating in the extracurricular lesson, and despite their insistence, the chairwoman remains steadfast in her decision. After the meeting, she provides Alus with a battle suit to help him conceal his identity during the upcoming lessons. Later in the evening, Alice and Tesfia wish each other good luck for the forthcoming event, which entails destroying the core of the demon beast, as per the mandatory requirement. The following morning, extracurricular lessons begin, and Alice and Loki prepare to work undercover to keep a check on any uneventful activity which might occur. The chairwoman commences the extracurricular lesson and emphasizes that the reserve squad will be ready to intervene if any issues arise. She hands out rescue flares to the group leaders and encourages everyone to give their best effort. Alice and Tesfia find themselves captivated by the sight of the outside world, experiencing it for the first time. They exchange words of encouragement, wishing each other the best of luck before parting ways with their respective team members. In the meantime, Alus and Loki observe the pleasant weather and anticipate no issues with their detection range. Alus decides to warm up to make things easier for the subjugation squad. They discover that there are currently 23 monsters within a 1-kilometer radius. Alus advises Loki to exercise caution and give her best before parting ways. The scene transitions to Tesfia's group, who detect the presence of an F-class monster stirring in the woods. She readies herself to freeze the creature, halting its movements, and instructs her team members to encircle the beast. With excellent teamwork, they successfully eliminate the monster. Tesfia's confidence swells as she feels she's one step closer to becoming a mage. Meanwhile, Alice is navigating the terrain with her group, feeling a sense of tension in the air. Suddenly, 2 E-class direwolves emerge. Recognizing this as the moment to put her rigorous training to the test, Alice instructs everyone to flee. She employs her defensive magic, successfully dispatching one of the beasts. Just as the second one is about to attack her, a fellow group member utilizes her own magic ability to eliminate the threat. Simultaneously, Loki encounters the subjugation squad and issues orders for them to always move in pairs. She explains that all communication will be conducted through a sensor. She proceeds to oversee and coordinate the subjugation squads, earning the admiration of her more experienced peers. Suddenly, Group 4's deviation from the designated extracurricular lesson area comes to light. In response, Loki swiftly issues orders for the subjugation squads to track them down. Astonishingly, 4 additional groups of students venture outside the authorized zone. Recognizing the severity of the situation, Loki contacts Alus, informing him that 5 groups are currently operating beyond the extracurricular lesson boundaries. She directs him to dispatch assistants to aid the students and hurries to the scene herself. Alus locates one of the groups, but their leader adamantly refuses to cooperate. Left with no alternative, Alice resorts to coercion and hands the uncooperative leader over to the subjugation squad. Meanwhile, Tesfia's group leader, Kavzor, intentionally guides them outside the assigned area. To their astonishment, a high-ranking spider creature materializes out of thin air. To make matters worse, multiple monsters converge on their location, instilling fear and anxiety in the group. Kavzor's fear becomes so overwhelming that he loses control of his bladder, while Tesfia struggles to maintain her composure in the face of the impending threat. She finds the emergency flare and decides to use it. Everyone in her group has given up, but she shows valor and decides to defend them until the rescue team arrives. The monstrous creature charges towards Tesfia, but she stands her ground resolutely, brandishing her magic sword against the menacing foe. Despite her valiant efforts, she finds herself outmatched and sustains substantial damage during the intense battle. Undeterred, Tesfia summons her inner courage and declares that she has not been defeated. As a mage, she refuses to surrender in the face of a menacing monster. Before she can launch another attack, a swarm of diminutive spiders descends upon her, rendering her defenseless. At this vulnerable moment, the colossal spider hurls a fiery projectile at Tesfia, causing her to collapse to the ground. Tears well up in her eyes as she pleads not to die, her voice quivering with desperation. She laments that there is still so much she yearns to achieve and experience in her life. Desperately, she continues to murmur that she doesn't want to meet her end, holding on to a glimmer of hope for an unlikely miracle. Suddenly, a masked figure, Alus Incognito, emerges on the scene. With a reassuring tone, he comforts Tesfia, urging her to rest and not fret any longer. He assures her that from this point on, he will take care of everything. The monstrous spider is identified as a formidable B-class creature, reigning as the dominant entity within the lake region. Alus, fuming with anger at the creature for injuring Tesfia, is determined to swiftly eliminate this menacing adversary. He employs his mastery of ice magic to systematically dismantle the spider's limbs. However, much to his astonishment, the monster showcases its remarkable regenerative capabilities, rapidly restoring its severed limbs. This only serves to intensify Alus's vexation, and he resolutely resolves to end this confrontation decisively. Alus unleashes the full extent of his icy powers, encasing the spider in a solid block of ice. Subsequently, he shatters the frozen beast into countless fragments that scatter in every direction. Overwhelmed and traumatized by the harrowing encounter, Tesfia and her group members express their heartfelt gratitude to Alus for his valiant intervention. Alus is taken aback as he observes a different side of the typically composed and aristocratic Tesfia. He witnesses her donning an innocent countenance and expressing genuine humility. Meanwhile, he notices that her fellow group members remain in a state of disarray, either unconscious or deeply bewildered. Tesfia extends reassurance to her companions, assuring them that the danger has passed as Alus prepares to make his departure. However, before departing, Tesfia mustered the courage to express her earnest request to Alus. She yearns to become stronger and implores Alus to become her mentor, willing to absorb all the knowledge he can offer. Alus is taken aback by her fervor, but decides to postpone the discussion for another time, advising her to first focus on her recovery. To her surprise, Alus promptly scoops her up in his arms and carries her towards the infirmary. Subsequently, it is disclosed that the extracurricular lessons concluded without incident, aside from the troubles initiated by the first-year students. Those students who impatiently ventured beyond the designated lesson area, seeking to bolster their rankings, faced a punitive measure of 1 month's suspension. Unfortunately, one student faced a more severe consequence: Kavzor, a third-year student who was subsequently expelled. The trauma he experienced in the face of the formidable monsters had left an indelible mark on his psyche, rendering him incapable of employing magic, thereby bringing his mage career to a devastating conclusion. In contrast, Tesphia, having confronted her own immaturity, redoubles her commitment to seek guidance from Alus, determined to overcome her weaknesses and grow stronger. Alus conveys to Alus the good news that Tesphia's wounds will heal perfectly with the aid of healing magic, expressing her relief at her best friend's well-being. However, she surprises Alus by revealing that the members of her group are currently too fatigued to undertake magic practice. Seizing this opportunity, she subtly hints that she has plenty of free time at her disposal. Recognizing her unspoken request, Alus agrees to instruct her in magic. He guides her to a secluded area within the forest, where he presents her with his magical sword. Alus is captivated by the sword's exquisite design and form, and she eagerly inquires whether she can attempt mana bestowal with the sword. Alus grants her permission, and to her amazement, she discovers that the sword is accompanied by a 50-meter chain. Regrettably, Alus's concentration wavers during the mana bestowal process. Nevertheless, Alus keenly observes an unusual aspect of her mana's response to his sword. He suspects that Alus's mana possesses a light-type affinity, strikingly similar to his own. However, he opts to withhold this revelation until he is entirely certain of his conclusion. Suddenly, an unexpected beast lunges at Alus, catching her off guard. In a swift display of her growing prowess, she eliminates the creature without hesitation. Alus seizes the opportunity to impart valuable insight. He enlightens Alus about her current capabilities, explaining that she is capable of defeating only D-grade beasts at her present level. With a tinge of regret, he informs her that the field of light-type affinity is sparsely explored, resulting in a limited variety of spells, most of which are quite complex. To Alus's surprise, Alus expresses her willingness to undergo a body examination for research purposes. Alus agrees to the proposition, but makes it clear that he will employ his specialized equipment to carry out the analysis. He emphasizes that it is essential for her to wear clothing during the examination. 2 days later, Alus finds himself in class, noting the conspicuously low attendance for the day. He recognizes that several students are absent, likely due to the emotional trauma resulting from their first encounters with demons. To his dismay, Alus becomes aware of the impending end-term exams, scheduled to take place in just 2 weeks. When Alus and Tesphia beseech him to teach and assist them in their studies, he reluctantly concedes to their request. Following an extensive study session, Alus and Tesphia express their gratitude to Alus and take their leave. Subsequently, Loki confronts Alus about his amiable demeanor toward both Alus and Tesphia, hinting at her disapproval. Alus, however, pays little heed to her comments and acknowledges that he'll have to postpone the examination of Alus until after the exams have concluded. Loki persists in her criticism of his behavior, but Alus defends his stance by pointing out the aptitude that both Alus and Tesphia possess. He also reveals that the school environment offers a certain degree of refreshment for him. While Loki candidly states that she cannot see herself becoming close to Alus and Tesphia, Alus advises her not to force a relationship but to maintain prudence. He reminds her to give her best if she wishes to meet his expectations. 2 weeks later, the written exams come to an end, and the practical skills test begins. Alus notices that the testing area is undivided, which prompts him to conceal his true abilities to avoid drawing unnecessary attention. During Loki's turn, she performs exceptionally well, leaving the onlookers in awe. Alus borrows her sword and manages to pass the practical skills test by pretending to be inept with light-type magic. Afterward, he approaches Alice and informs her to meet with him after the exams, as he intends to commence the examination of her body. The narrative transports us to a flashback, delving into Alice's childhood. She is depicted sitting in a laboratory, subjected to a battery of examinations conducted by doctors as part of the element factor isolation plan. Her life took a significant turn at the age of 7 when she was diagnosed with a virus linked to the ongoing pandemic. Unfortunately, the comprehensive medical evaluations were financially burdensome, and her parents struggled to cover the treatment costs. Then, a pivotal moment occurred when a government official arrived to discuss Alice's situation. This official revealed that, during her examinations, they had uncovered a unique affinity within her, an affinity with the rare and elusive light-type element. Light and dark-type elements stand apart from the 5 basic elemental types, requiring individuals to possess a natural affinity for their manipulation, rendering them exceedingly uncommon. The government official disclosed that, for the future of their nation and humanity, they needed to requisition Alice's abilities. Initially, her parents resisted this proposal. However, the official offered a substantial sum of money, and within a week, Alice was relinquished to the laboratory for further examination and experimentation. The government official laid out the dire circumstances to Alice and her family. Their nation faced a looming threat from the formidable forces of the demon army, and Alice's unique affinity was the perfect trump card for confronting this perilous situation. Her parents, despite their reluctance, were granted the privilege of seeing her for an hour each day. The research program was scheduled to last for 3 years, and during the initial weeks, there was a glimmer of hope in her heart. Her parents reassured her that, after these 3 years, they would be reunited as a family once more. However, with the passage of time, the research regimen grew increasingly harsh and demanding. Aggressive injections were administered, and she would awaken in her bed, disoriented and in pain. As the effects of the anesthetics wore off, she endured excruciating agony and bouts of nausea. This torment became her daily ordeal, but she clung to the hope that her parents were waiting for her. Then, one fateful day, a doctor delivered the crushing news. Her parents were too consumed by their work and couldn't visit her. Initially, Alice tried to dismiss her concerns, as her father had always been exceedingly protective. But, soon enough, the harsh reality settled in. She would be left alone in this nightmarish facility. Sometime later, Alice found solace in the companionship of another girl, and their bond resembled that of true sisters. However, this period of relative happiness was short-lived. One day, the laboratory was unexpectedly raided, and conclusive evidence of illicit experiments was uncovered by an official investigation. It was during this traumatic ordeal that Alice received the heart-wrenching news of her parents' demise. Her home had been invaded by burglars, and her parents had been mercilessly killed. What remained of her parents' possessions was given to Alice, who was subsequently transferred to a care facility. During her stay at the facility, Alice managed to adjust to her new surroundings, thanks to the warmth and kindness of her caretaker. But her sense of security was shattered once more when the caretaker left suddenly. With an unwavering determination to become a magician, Alice relocated to a care facility near the Army's headquarters and began attending a nearby dojo. She loathed her unique affinity, but it was the only inheritance her parents had left for her. In the present, Tesfia expressed concern about Alice forcing herself to undergo the examination, to which Alice responded that she was okay with it. Alus informed them that the data collected from Alice's mana was being analyzed and instructed them to return to their dormitories. The following day, Alice, Tesfia, Loki, and Alus convened at the training area. After individual sparring sessions with each of them, Alice emphasized the importance of not relying solely on magic. He explained that running out of magic in the outside world could be perilous, underscoring the significance of stamina and close-quarters combat skills. Later, Alice examined the results of Alice's examination and uncovered an unexpected revelation. The reason her mana had responded to his sword was due to an irregular string of characters inexplicably etched into her very being. Thanks for watching. If you liked our content, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel.